somewhere in Juliana's car. So it was all right.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
We couldn't find it. We'd given up until that Tina walked in. She's got a knack for that.
We're finding things. We knew we'd hung up.
Yes, I had to turn it to get you in the.
Seems like it's been forever since we've been together.
We are live whenever you'd like to start, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, is everybody ready?
Yes, sir.
We'll go ahead and get started a couple minutes early then. So we'll call this meeting of the Pulaski County School Board to order. Tonight's meeting, of course, is, I guess, a combination of our April meeting that we postponed and, of course, our May meeting. Before we get started, if we could, I would like to ask Dr. Cash if you would lead us in the pledge, please.
Will you recite? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Here in the little theater that instead of our boardroom, it was a little bit quieter than it normally is. And of course, we usually have a larger attendance, of course, in a regular meeting, certainly based on current conditions. There's about 10 or 12 of us here in the little theater tonight. Also want to recognize this week is Teacher Appreciation Week. And while our teachers may not necessarily be in the buildings on a daily basis, they are continuing to do the work that they need to do to make sure that our kids of Pulaski County are certainly receiving instruction at this time. So we certainly want to give our appreciation and thanks to our teachers in Pulaski County Public Schools. And that brings us to recognition. Dr. Sears.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ordinarily, this would be the meeting where we have the big spread of snacks and stuff and recognize our teachers of the year and employees of the year. But to divide it up so we could have a little good news at each meeting, we'll do the employees of the year at the June meeting this year, and then we will plan a large reception for all these folks once we can get everyone together again.
That'd be great.
And hopefully have Mrs. Norris's chocolate-covered popcorn.
That would make it even better.
But at this time, it's my pleasure to present to the board each school's selection for Teacher of the Year. For Chrysler Elementary, Redora Compton. Mrs. Compton is a kindergarten teacher who's described as selfless, engaging, and a master at meeting the needs of diverse learners. She consistently exemplifies the dedication and passion that are character traits for all great teachers. She makes our school community a better place to work. For Dublin Elementary, Laurie Sexton. Mrs. Sexton is a 4th or 5th grade Title I teacher who works tirelessly to be a positive force in the lives of her students. She's an incredible problem solver and always willing to do what is best for teachers and students. For Pulaski Elementary, Randy Chrisley. Ms. Chrisley is a Title I math teacher at Pulaski Elementary School who carefully designs instruction to reach various learning styles. You can find students singing, rapping, dancing, creating, building, and collaborating with her on a daily basis. Her passion for education is evident in everything that she does. And some of these pictures came off Facebook pages. They're not yearbook shots. Riverlawn Elementary, Susan Wirt. Mrs. Wirt is an amazing pre-K teacher who gives all she can for her students and their families. She makes every student feel loved and like they can accomplish anything. Students leave her room knowing how to be their best selves. Snowville Elementary School is Tracy Deshawn. Mrs. Deshawn is a pre-K teacher with 24 years of experience in Pulaski County. She shows love and kindness to her students while also working hard to make sure that every student is ready for kindergarten. Dublin Middle, Lincoln Whitaker. Mr. Whitaker, our instructional technology resource teacher, was selected as the DMS Teacher of the Year for his invaluable expertise in guiding teachers through the ever-increasing technology needs in today's classrooms. He is the type of teacher who brings learning to life and opens doors to all possibilities. Mr. Whitaker really cares about his work and his community. Pulaski Middle, Kaylee McKillican. Ms. McKillican is a phenomenal math teacher at Pulaski Middle School. She's a go-getter who is passionate about our school. She's a strong teacher leader who always goes above and beyond in the performance of her duties, and our students absolutely thrive in her classroom. CTE, Tony Bowman. Ms. Bowman is the Health and Medical Sciences teacher at the CTE Center of Pulaski County High School. During the last 13 and a half years, she has brought enthusiasm, talent, and a strong work ethic into preparing certified nursing assistants for employment in the New River Valley. Her efforts have been rewarded with a 100% pass rate on the CNA certification exams over the past 2 years. We are very proud of her, and her retirement has left us with a huge void to fill for next year. In Pulaski County High School, Kirsten Hayes. Mrs. Hayes is a health, PE, and driver's education teacher at Pulaski County High School who was nominated to be our Teacher of the Year because of her motivation to keep the Cougar spirit at the forefront of all we do. Her love for teaching is evident in her daily interactions with students of PCHS, and we are very proud to work alongside her. There's one more. Okay. The PCPS Teacher of the Year. We decided to take a little different approach on this year, given our circumstances. Pulaski County Public Schools is proud to present our Teacher of the Year for 2019-2020. Although there have been some amazing teachers doing incredible work in each of our schools, we feel that for this year, those most deserving of our highest recognition for educators are the parents of Pulaski County. Life changed dramatically for all of us on March 13, 2020, when schools were shut down throughout the state. During the ensuing turmoil, uncertainty, and great financial strain, it has been the parents of our students who have worked diligently to facilitate the continuity of learning while striving to fulfill their own job and life responsibilities. Every school in Pulaski County has innumerable examples of parents and students using provided resources to create incredible learning experiences that ensure students will return next year ready to move forward. We are extremely proud of and inspired by the value placed on education by the parents in our community and believe them to be second to none. Therefore, we are pleased to present the parents of our students to the Pulaski County School Board as our Teachers of the Year. So congratulations to all of our Teachers of the Year, and we look forward to the reception.
That's an incredible choice. It really is, and it's very fitting. Although it would also be very fitting to have recognized all of our Teachers of the Year from each school as well.
Yes.
Because they're all very deserving. So, but that's certainly an incredible choice, and I just want to thank all of our teachers and as well as administrators in the school system, all the employees in the school system. So yeah, an excellent choice of naming the parents the Teachers of the Year, because they're certainly getting an experience.
Yes, they are. Congratulations, Dr. Cash. Now you can add that to your resume. And Ms. Golden, you both have something to plug on your resume.
That's okay. That's okay. Moving right along, that brings us to public comments. And Dr. Sears, I believe you're over public comments tonight as well.
Mr. Chairman, we have 2 comments. One, Susie Hickman says, yay, Susan worked. And Candy Castelluccio says, hard to hear. Anyway, turn up on school's end.
So we need to turn the volume up a little bit, I guess.
Or maybe speak up a little bit.
Okay, we can do that as well. So that's our public comments, at least for the time being. Moving on, that brings us to approval of minutes. Since our last meeting, there's actually been 4 meetings. that we need to approve tonight as far as the minutes. The first was the March 5th meeting. That was a joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors, a strategic planning session that was held in Christiansburg, as well as our March the 10th regular meeting, our special call meeting of March the 16th, and a special call meeting of March the 24th. The board has received copies of these minutes earlier today. At this time, are there any questions or comments regarding the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes of March the 5th with a joint meeting with Pulaski County Board of Supervisors, March the 10th regular meeting, March the 16th special call meeting, and March the 24th special call meeting? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the minutes as written for March the 5th, March the 10th, March the 16th, and March the 24th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Porter?
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Ms. Gold?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Brings us to the adoption of this evening's agenda. Earlier today, the board received a copy of the agenda for tonight's meeting. Are there any corrections concerning the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting, March the 4th? I'm sorry, May the 4th.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting, May the 4th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Porter?
Mrs. Cox?
Yes.
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Ms. Gold?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Brings us to the consent agenda, which includes payment of bills, personnel, and if we can get the personnel up on the screen, please. Any questions or comments regarding the consent agenda, payment of bills, or the personnel agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Porter?
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Ms. Gold?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Congratulations, Ms. Bowling.
Thank you, Mr.
It's all yours. It's all yours. So
You poor child.
I'm excited.
I know you are.
we're excited for you. Congratulations. Brings us to information items, and we start out tonight with a budget analysis. So I guess, Mr. Stafford, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the school board. Just wanted to provide a brief budget analysis for you. This is through March the 31st. We don't have one for April yet, but that will be forthcoming. As of the end of March, of course, only 25% of the budget year is remaining. I guess the best way to put this is we are, of course, seeing some significant savings even as of March with the closure of schools. Our revenues, sales tax payments were actually ahead of budget through March. However, we know in May and June those will be substantially affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Basic state aid is on target as our other lottery-funded revenue accounts are being received now. In terms of our expenditures, all of our major expenditure areas are well under budget at this point in the year. Again, we're seeing even as of the end of March, some significant savings. We were actually seeing some savings through the winter months. As you all know, it was quite a mild winter, and we were already seeing in our electric and bills and natural gas bills some significant savings there. But that is continuing, obviously, with the closure. As of March, we had approximately $5.4 million available in our county funds for the remainder of the year. Obviously, that'll be dropping in April, but looking at already the initial review I've done, again, I don't want to quantify it, but we have some significant savings that will carry forward into May and June. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Well, that's some good news. We certainly appreciate it, Mr. Stack. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Guess it brings us to operations.
And I have that as well.
I was wondering where Mr. Scholl was at.
Well, we quarantined him out of the picture for tonight. We told him we delivered. Well, in a nutshell, we have very few work orders going on right now, although there's a lot of work. You all know the maintenance staff, they're spending 3 to 4 days a week involved in the logistics and distribution of the student meals, and
Right.
are I would say an integral part of that, doing the heavy lifting, literally, in terms of getting those meals on buses and that kind of thing. Also, obviously, our grounds crew is hitting it hard, with the recent rains and warmer weather that they are mowing. I think everything's looking really good.
Yeah, they've picked up a little property right down the road here, a little bit
They
as well.
certainly have. They certainly have.
Have they mowed those slopes?
Yes. They've tried out a few of the mowers on them, and we're successful.
We've also mowed some of the fields.
Yes.
I can tell that from.
I'd like to go up and watch them mow those slopes.
And finally, as I submitted in the weekly update, we've had a couple of the maintenance staff that's been doing a great job of continuing replacing the lines at Dublin Elementary School. I can't wait for you. The pictures really don't do it justice.
Right.
Wait till you see it in person. I know Jess has already, Mr. Schultz already told their custodial crew they're going to have to step it up because now you can see the dirt. But I think it looks really good.
Any questions for operations? Thank you, Mr. Stack.
Thanks.
Calendar items, Dr. Sears.
Chairman, can we go back to the COVID-19 planning and update?
If I've skipped it, I imagine we can. Yes, sir. We did.
This is just an update on where we are with things in regard to our day-to-day operations and planning for next year. As far as work schedules, our teachers are continuing to work from home, and they come into schools as needed to facilitate the continuity of learning. Custodians, maintenance, and grounds are working their regular schedules. And as Chris said, a lot of those folks have been involved in the meal distribution program as well. Cafeteria workers and paraprofessionals are working up to 2 days per week to run the meals program. Principals and directors have returned to working in their respective offices 5 days a week. All other 11 and 12-month employees, assistant principals, counselors, coordinators, bookkeepers, psychologists, administrative assistants, etc., still work a hybrid schedule from home and coming in a couple days a week, or up to a couple of days a week. And social distancing guidelines are still in place for everyone who's coming in. We're still, even though we have more people in now, we're still doing meetings on Zoom or GoToMeeting. We're not congregating in rooms. And if we do have to get even a group of 3 or 4 people together, we set the boardroom up at the school board office to where we can maintain social distancing to have those face-to-face conversations. With regard to our summer programs, we have moved the dates to all summer programs to July 27th to August 7th. That's about as late as we can go in the year and still get them in. Anything beyond that would be putting a damper on what we can do to get the next year kicked off. And the summer programs include summer academies, credit recovery courses, the extended school year, and Camp Cooper. So if we are allowed to return to have those programs, those will be the dates that we make that happen. The meal programs, the current meal program has served, I think we went over 85,000 meals today. The last day for it will be May 20th. And then our summer meals program will kick in, and it'll start on May 27th and operate out of most of our schools. It'll still have the curbside distribution, but the way the summer meal program works is a little different. We won't be sending buses out into the various communities. But it'll work similar to that, with people being able to drive by and pick up the meals. We also heard from the state superintendent last week that EBT cards are going to be issued in the amount of $370 for each student who receives free or reduced lunches. So for us, that would be at Dublin Middle and Pulaski County High School, or attends a community eligibility provision CEP designated school, which is all of our other schools. So every student who attends the other schools would be receiving that EBT card. We don't yet know a date that they'll be sent out, but I expect it will be sometime around the end of May or early part of June. And that's to help offset some of the cost of feeding kids that the school, they would have had the meals had they been in school. End of the year activities. At the last meeting, we tentatively scheduled prom for Friday, June 5th, and the 8th grade dance for Saturday, June 6th, and graduation for Friday, June 12th. The governor since extended the stay-at-home order, or whatever you call the order that he gave, through June 10th. So my question would be, do we want to push the dates back from there, or do we want to move forward planning a graduation ceremony under social distancing guidelines? You know, we've had the high school, and Jennifer can speak to this better than I can, that they have worked out several different options that we could still make it work. You know, Jennifer, do you want to talk about some of the things you've been discussing?
Absolutely. We were looking at possibly the 20th, just to give enough time for setup if the orders were lifted come 10th of June. And we created a plan where that would include us being able to utilize the entire stadium, both the visitor and home side, rearrange how the stage is oriented so that we can allow folks to assemble themselves appropriately on the field, or to use the same space and route through the parking lot to have a potential drive set up and involve families in that.
So you're talking about moving graduation back to the 20th, is that?
We were just curious if after the 10th,
Okay.
if that were the 3-week plan that he spoke of today, we wanted to have 2 plans ready.
Okay.
One to move through if we can have everyone in the stadium area, or one if we have to limit that to 50 or less, where we can involve families coming through as the student walks across the stage with staff and such available.
I think the drive-through could happen under current guidelines, could it?
We wanted to involve the families to be able to step up if a hybrid of a drive-through versus an in-person. If we have the stage set up and the family can come out with the student can walk across the stage, and the family could be there to be a part of that. It would be a lengthier process. That was why we were looking at the 20th, which I believe is a Saturday, to see if we could extend that to just keep everything a safe semblance there through the stadium and the main parking lot.
Any questions? I like the idea of having it in the stadium. The stadium is huge. And we're graduating, 250 this year? You know, I was just looking at dimensions of a football field the other day, 100 yards by 53 yards. And I was thinking you could put 15 kids on each 5-yard line, each 5 yards. So and go all the way across that field. And
Utilize the concourse.
absolutely. Absolutely. So I love the idea, Jennifer. And I don't care if it lasts 6 hours. Personally, these kids,
It's an all-day event,
they deserve every minute of it.
absolutely.
So yeah, I love it. So,
So we want to move it to the 20th and have it, no matter what, have some type of, I mean, we know we can do, at the worst case scenario, we can do the drive-through on the football field, but if we shoot for the 20th and the guidelines are lifted, we can probably do some type of social distancing graduation and give out a certain number of tickets based on how far apart we can spread people.
And we can use the visitor side as well.
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, you can, if you had, parents for each child, it's 500 folks that, like Mr. Benson said, you could use each side, and those stands are plenty big to separate folks, and so yeah, I personally love the idea.
Well, even during football games, there's always some who use the banks.
That's right, and it's still available. It's still
Right.
available. So, and I don't know, that brings to me, it's a sense of what a Pulaski County High School graduations should look like. And, yeah. Any other comments or questions?
So we're gonna pray for sunshine.
Perfect weather.
We will shoot for June 20th and probably schedule it earlier in the day, I would think. And that way, if we have to postpone it, we can postpone it to the afternoon and then use Sunday as a fallback if need be, because we won't have the gym as an option this year.
Right.
If you do it earlier in the day, a lot of times you avoid those
Yeah.
afternoon thunder showers.
Yeah.
And we were also looking at that next weekend, just unsure as to whether maintenance, once everything is lifted, would have the time to turn around with whichever plan we chose to go.
Right.
So the 20th, 10 a.m., would that work?
And then the 27th was another one that was looked at, but I think folks were looking at earlier just to not mix into vacation possibilities that could be made.
Yeah.
So we're probably not going to have a prom. There's just not really a way to social distance at the prom.
Given the way the timeline was rolled out today,
Yeah,
I don't see any way that we can make that happen.
unfortunately, I know this is going to break a lot of hearts, but I don't. Prom and 8th grade dance, you can't dance 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
You don't.
I've given some thought to that as well. Regardless of where we are as far as social distancing at that point in time, the students a lot of them have not been able to work to make that extra money. And that may have been the case for some parents as well during this time period. Unless they're ordering a dress that they can't really try on, they haven't been able to shop. And there's a whole lot that goes into preparing for prom, well beyond even the attire, as far as the hair and everything. I don't see it happening, and I think even if we could set a date, then that's going to put a lot of burden on staff and students and everybody to make that happen. They do a lot of planning just to decorate and spend weeks on that. I don't see it happening. I would be, if nothing will replace prom. And I understand that, but I would certainly be in favor of anything that the school system could do as far as celebrating after graduation with food or whatever.
Yeah.
If we could.
And that would hinge on where we want the social distancing at that time too. That's a good idea.
All right. Well, I think we're good to go, Dr. Sue.
Okay. And then the last thing I had is around the guidance we're getting around returning in the fall. We have been advised to plan for three contingencies. Opening school under normal conditions, opening school with staggered attendance for proper social distancing, and not opening school but continuing with distance learning. So we are currently discussing how we could make, well, one, we know we can make work open under normal circumstances. We're having conversations about how to make the other two options work if we are still under social distancing guidelines come the end of August. We're eligible to receive $867,000 of CARES Act funding. A large portion of that will need to be used for extending the remote learning capabilities of our students. The folks are working this week to identify our needs and solutions, and then next week, when the applications are made available to us, we'll have a general idea of how to move forward with that. We know that approximately 1/3 of our students have either insufficient or no internet access. That's based on the number who've requested packets. We have about 2/3 who are doing the assignments online, and a little over 30% who have requested the written packets this year. So our goal would be to try to get devices in the hands of everyone, but also to look at ways to increase internet access throughout the county. And Josh is working on several options that might help us do that, and a big chunk of that $800,000 will go toward that.
Is the county aware of this?
They are aware that we were going to be eligible for funds when Mr. Hurst and Chris and I met with them, but at that point, I don't think we had an amount yet.
Right.
But are they aware of about 1/3 of the students who are not able to access?
No, we just got that together today.
They know that there's a deficit.
Yeah, they know that there's an issue with broadband in the
Yeah,
town.
they have for the past 2 years applied for grants through the AEI and been denied both years.
This is the first time that we probably got closer to being able to put a quantity on it.
Yeah. And some people who requested packets have internet access, but it's not sufficient, or the parents also need the internet for work. And so we're also looking for ways to add additional instructional time to next year's calendar. If you remember, we lengthened the day already in order to condense the year for the opening of the new middle school. So we are looking at probably cutting out the PD days that are during the year and turning those into instructional days, and some of the work days, turning those to instructional days, because we are going to have to designate the first several days of next year as review and prepping students to enter whatever the curriculum will be for their subjects next year. And hopefully we'll have more information on that before next month's meeting. We should have a better plan fleshed out at that time. And fall sports are questionable at this point, so we have started a conversation with the high school. Scott is pulling together some information for us to identify the impact that no football season would have on their ability to fund other programs. Football generates almost all revenue. All other sports, the money that is used to pay for their transportation and officials is really paid for out of football funds.
I think
Football revenue.
the only other sport that probably is close to paying for itself would probably be girls basketball, more than likely. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm thinking football is about $60,000 to $70,000 is about what it comes up to.
Yes.
So, okay.
And that's on a down year.
Yeah.
So, should one of the second options be used, or especially continuing distance learning through next year, what challenge do you foresee for the kindergarten group?
Yeah,
Since they're new to this concept.
that's a very good point, and we just started those conversations last week too, because we would have, if we can't get students back in the building, how are we going to distribute the devices to them? How are we going to train the students to be able to use them? How are we going to train the teachers who have not been working, doing Google Classroom or any of the platforms that we use, how are we gonna get the PD in for them? That's the easiest to solve out of all of them. We can put some programs together to train teachers. But there are a number of challenges. So my hope is that if we can't start with a full school year, that we can at least do some type of rotation to get, half the students in every other day, and then the teachers have the opportunity to work with them and issue the device and teach them how to use it. And then on the days they're not in, they would be given, virtual assignments to complete or work that they get to do through Google Classroom.
Will that account for the hours, face-to-face hours that they have to get the year in?
I would anticipate the state would offer waivers once again for those hours like they did this year, if we have to open under those circumstances.
May I ask a clarification question about the meal programs?
Yes,
The summer meal program, that in the past has been for students who receive free and reduced lunch, is that correct?
no, it has been for anyone.
For anybody?
Yes,
Okay, so again, summer meal programs for anybody who wants.
yes, anyone who would like to come and pick up meals through the summer program can do that.
And it's always been that way?
Yes. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it even fed adults one year, didn't it?
Yes.
Huh. I do have another question. What about governor's school?
Next
What are
year.
your plans?
They're in the same boat that we are. I haven't had a conversation with Rebecca since the early days of the school closure.
Or
But-
about 11 or 13 different votes, actually.
Yeah. But they have, with their affiliation with the community college, they have a lot more virtual options to continue their courses than what we have in general public schools.
And one of my questions was in regard to pushing the summer programs out, which probably wouldn't involve any of the governor's school students, but governor's school starts much earlier typically. And that date of July 27th through August 7th then gets into their normal.
Yeah. I think they start the following week, if I remember correctly. Okay, and I'm almost embarrassed to pull up the calendar items. No plays, no award ceremonies, no kindergarten promotion ceremonies.
I do have a question in regards to award ceremonies. Typically we have senior award assembly each year. As far as and we give out, or there's approximately $2 million worth of scholarships that are given out during that period of time. How do we have any idea how that's affected how the recent events has affected that?
No, I don't know that we can. I assume that most of the scholarship applications probably went in about the time the school closure came or prior to that. So it probably hasn't had a huge impact on the overall dollar amount, but it could have impacted some scholarships that we might see.
I would be curious. Senior Awards Assembly to me is always one of my favorite events of the year. It's always just so impressive to see the amount of scholarships that are given out. It's to see how many of our students are graduating with honors and so forth. And it just Lord, it makes you sick not to be able to see that this year. It really does.
Ms. Bowen, could you get together a list of the scholarships that have been awarded, and we could, if nothing else, we could present that at the next school board meeting and at least have some type of public acknowledgement.
If we could pass it on to the media as well, so that I'm sure they would give us some publicity for our students and So yeah, if we could do that.
I have a question for the media. Are you all gonna try to do the, I don't know how you would, but the graduate insert for the
Yeah, we're gonna
things
do
that
it.
come from Southwest Times?
Actually, yeah, we're gonna do it. And we'll be getting back to you, mostly David's probably, so, yeah, it's a plan.
Super.
Good to see that hasn't been canceled.
One other thing that we're typically doing, normally about now, is a reception for retiring
Yes,
teachers and staff.
I think that was on the schedule for, was it last Thursday or this Thursday?
This Thursday.
Yes, and we will still put that together too, once we can congregate again.
A lot of things to catch up with.
Need to have a great big party.
Just block off every Thursday in September and October. for receptions.
Gladly.
We can do that. We can do that.
One thing we didn't put on the calendar because we don't know a date yet, but I received an email from Mr. McCoy, and they have the rights to do Matilda, and they've been doing online practices, and
That's great.
and he is bound and determined if we can get social distancing relaxed just a little bit, that they're going to do a drive-in performance of it, where you can pull up in your car and it'll be broadcast on the radio of your car, and you can watch the students perform it. They are working it out. He won't guarantee that it can happen, but they are doing everything they can to make that happen.
Well, my money's on Mr. McCoy.
Yeah.
It certainly is. Yeah, if anybody can make it happen, I'd say Jeff can. So, you're right, Dr. Shears. That calendar item is sad.
Yeah, this is usually our longest one of the year in May,
It is.
because there's something almost every day.
Okay, we'll move right along, and that brings us to action items. And we'll start out with special education. So, Ms. Poacher.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I have a final copy of the annual plan. There is a change that I want to bring to your attention. We have the ability to take funds and set it aside out of the federal grant and be able to use it directly with gen ed students, which is something that we don't normally do. However, given the situation and the need for training around the new restraint and seclusion laws, as well as needing some training for de-escalation around our discipline, we felt like this would be a perfect time. So we have set aside $50,000 that would pay for some PDNs and training and be able to be used with our gen ed faculty as well as our SPED faculty. So I did want to bring that to your attention. It's going to be the same page as the proportionate set aside. This is a voluntary set aside. It can become a mandatory set aside if the numbers aren't brought under control, just to be quite frank with the discipline. And if that happens, then that is a 15% set aside. So it really is in our best interest to go ahead and set aside part of that now.
Right.
And start working on it and try and avoid the 15% mandatory set aside. That really is the only significant change since the last time we talked. Do you have any questions? Anything I can clarify?
So the recommendation then is to approve the annual plan for VDOE, to submit to VDOE. Is there a motion to approve the annual plan for special education?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the annual plan for special education.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Porter?
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Ms. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Porter.
Thank you.
Next is a resolution regarding suspension of school board policy. Dr. Sears?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is a resolution that has been sent out to all the school divisions in Virginia, and it it allows us to enact the waivers that the state has put in place and the General Assembly for graduation requirements, awarding credits, the hours for courses, without having to change our policy and then change them back in this vote. It's just a temporary permission. Ms. Rash is actually working on a list currently of the policies this impacts, and we should have those sent out to the board by the end of the week. And like I say, it's just a temporary waiver of those policies so that we can enact the waivers that the state has granted.
Any questions for Dr. Sears? If there are none, is there a motion to approve the resolution regarding suspension of school board policies?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the resolution regarding suspension of school board policies.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Porter?
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Ms. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Brings us to course name change, education for employment to building management. Dr. Sears?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. When we had the CTE audit last fall, one of the things that was noted was that the education for employment code wasn't really appropriate for the course that was being taught, and the recommendation was that it be changed to building management 1 and 2, and that corresponds more closely with the options that students can go into at the community college from those courses if they choose to do that. And so this is just enacting one of the recommendations from the audit that was done at the CTE Center in the fall.
Okay.
And it does, Mr. Ratcliffe, his certification does cover the new course code.
Any questions for Dr. Sears? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the course name change, education for employment to building management?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that that the course name change, education for employment and building management.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Porter?
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Ms. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
That brings us to our fiscal year 2020, 2021 school board budget once again. Mr. Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the school board. As you will recall, in late March, I stood here at this very spot and presented the rosiest budget
Yes, sir.
that I ever presented, while knowing in my heart of hearts that it was dead on arrival, so to speak. Obviously, this is a very changed budget, but it's still obvious. Honestly, any other year, I would think it was still a very good budget.
Absolutely.
So last Wednesday evening, in the dark of night, the budget office of the Virginia Department of Education released their budget numbers, and Dr. Sears and I went to work to craft out how we could still take the state reduction and do the best we can with it to help out our employees in the area of compensation and benefits, while at the same time creating a hedging against some further revenue reductions that we'll likely expect. So I am pleased to present our final recommended school board budget for FY 2021. Of course, the proposed total revenue, state revenue has changed by about $620,000 was the reduction to increase of about $1.4 million in state funds. We also have received communication from the county board of supervisors that they intend to provide level funding based upon also using $500,000 in our year-end funds to help with that level funding for next year. So about the state revenue projection, Of course, after the April, in the April reconvened session of the General Assembly, amendments were made that removed the decreases in the school counselor to student ratios. They also took away the compensation supplement for both years of the budget, additional funding for the Virginia Preschool Initiative Program, and also additional general funds for the at-risk add-on. No adjustments were made to the sales tax payments or lottery-funded infrastructure and operations for pupil funding, but we know, have been told that that would be changed later in the year. So we know their budget was based on a ADM of 3,861 students. We, I know Dr. Sears has received the guidance that we could potentially expect a change in student enrollment at the start of the year, whenever we're allowed to start, just because of the disruption to our families and lots of different scenarios there that can play out in student enrollment. Additionally, potential for decreasing state sales tax payments. Our current budget is about $5 million that we get in state revenue, our share of state sales tax collections, and of course, we know those have dramatically declined over the past couple of months. Once those revised projections are updated, there is supposed to be a special session of the General Assembly to occur later in the summer or fall, and that's when we'll likely see the result of those updated sales tax payments. So we know that that particular line item in the budget is basically inaccurate right now. Additionally, the infrastructure and operations per pupil fund, this fund is 100% lottery funded, and there was language in the original budget that no more than 70% of this funding could be spent on recurring operations, and 30% would have to be spent on capital type expenditures, non-recurring expenditures. So we had already earmarked about $292,000 to increase our school bus replacement cycle in next year's budget. The amended budget has language now that permits DOE to prorate this per pupil fund in both years of the biennium if lottery proceeds are less than estimated. One of the recent conference calls we had, we were told that lottery collections are down about 25 to 30%. So we know that lottery collections right now do not appear to are going to make budgets. So because we're funding these 3 additional school buses with the 30% of this revenue source, we intend to basically hold on to this money as long as we can in the year, and that can be used as a hedge against changes to this revenue account. Finally, the VRS employer rates, that did not change for next year's budget. So in terms of addressing our budget priorities, obviously the number one priority was dramatically changed, and our revised teacher salary scale was scaled back to a step increase plus a 1% pay raise for teachers. Obviously this was kind of the centerpiece of our budget, or proposed budget, that was approved in March, but due to these lower state revenue estimates, there's no way we could have funded this dramatic of a change in our teacher salary scale. However, we are proposing the step increase plus a 1%, and that actually keeps us in line with what other surrounding school divisions are doing. So we don't feel we're going to lose any ground to any other school divisions around us. Budget priority number 2, this was originally a 2% increase for the all of our other support staff, and we did scale that back to match the teacher increase of 1%. Budget priority 3, the reduction in employee health insurance premiums. We obviously reviewed that in our proposed budget, but we did, we were able to keep this in our final budget. This will, obviously doesn't affect everyone, but for the folks that do have health insurance with the school division, especially in the family categories, it can make a big difference in their paycheck. We were pleased that we could keep this change in employee health insurance premiums in the budget. That would basically, in 7 of the 8 insurance options, an employee would see a decrease from $8 to $301 a month in their paycheck, and percentage decreases from 5 to 45%. And just mind you, I'll let you know when these proposed employee premiums are compared with surrounding divisions for the family plan, for HSA plan, we'll have the lowest family plan premium of any school division around us.
That's good news. That's
Great news.
this board's been, as you already mentioned, Chris, it's been a priority of the board for many years, and it's good to see us in a competitive place with our health insurance now. So thank you for your work.
On any other year, we would be kicking up our heels to have this budget to work with from the beginning.
Yes, sir.
But now it feels like we've lost something because the initial budget looked so robust.
Yep, exactly.
We did, as the budget priority number 4, and I touched on that earlier, we did still have the increase our school bus replacements using that infrastructure and operations lottery funded funding. Our budget priority number 5, the revised administrative salary scale. This has been changed somewhat since our original budget to a different option. This basically only affects the administrators at the principals on the high school and middle school level, but it does bring us somewhat more competitive with our surrounding school divisions for those categories. We do recognize that the scale has really not been updated since 2014, and it would have been good to also have come up with a new scale, but really we ran out of time. And but that would be, I think, a priority in future years to go back and look at that scale in all the different categories. And that total cost is $17,963. Our budget priority number 6, this may seem strange to have a budget priority, but knowing as a budget contingency, but knowing that the sales tax payment revenue account and that infrastructure and operations per pupil account, plus a big unknown in our student enrollment, Dr. Sears and I felt like it was important to try to create some budget contingency that we know that we will end up using. We hope it's enough. We don't know how much is enough right now, but we were able to budget $345,000 of this in this budget to create as a contingency against some of these revenue accounts that we know will change. So this, if we combine this in addition to the school bus purchases that will delay as late as possible with that lottery funded account, we really have over $600,000 if you think about it in contingency that we can utilize in the budget going forward for this year. So we do feel good about that number. We do have some other retirement savings that we're using for this budget that we previously discussed. So the final, page of this presentation would be the recap of the change in state revenue compared with our projected changes in expenditures, and including our budget priorities that we're able to include in this budget. I do do want to make mention, although it's not in the school operating fund, we are also including this budget by your hopefully approval tonight, the revised pay scale for our school nutrition employees. This is going to accomplish a couple of different things, one of which is to get some of their pay rates where they need to be for the new minimum wage law that will go into effect in 2021, but also if you look at that scale, it's going to provide a much needed increase for air school nutrition staff. That would be funded solely through the cafeteria fund. That estimated cost is about $87,000. And with that, I'll be glad to try to answer any questions you may have.
I would like for the administrative salary scale to be a one-year scale, and then look at reworking that scale next year all the way across the board. And I know we can't move to a 2% raise for the support staff, but whatever we do for them next year, I would like to, hopefully we could include that 1% that they didn't get this year into that, because these are people that really need it.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from Mr. Staff? Chris, I just want to say, I know you guys have been working with a moving target, and so I know it's been challenging to try to nail down our budget for this school year. So I appreciate the work that you and your team have done, as well as Dr. Sears. I appreciate the contingency as well, as it's certainly wise budgeting. And hopefully at the end of the year, we'll still have that contingency. But I appreciate that as well. Also, I think we need to mention too that, we should thank the county for providing level funding for us this year. The county, needless to say, has their own challenges as well. And we've seen a little bit of that in a recent meeting. And so we certainly appreciate the county as well as for committing to level funding for the schools for this year. If there's no other questions for Mr. Stafford, is there a motion to approve the fiscal 2020-2021 school board budget?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the final fiscal year 2020-2021 budget as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Porter?
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Dr. Cash?
Yes.
Ms. Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Thank you. Brings us to future agenda items. This time, if the board would like to request any future agenda items.
School to be back, and I want football.
I want to see this little theater full. I want to watch Matilda.
When could we go to the middle school?
We can set up a tour anytime you want to go. Jess or Dane can take you, or probably still not best to do a large group tour.
Right.
We could maybe set up a day and people have two or three come in for a tour, and then two or three come in at different times. You want me to have Jess set up a day for you?
That would be nice.
Okay.
It's, I know we had a progress meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we'll have another progress meeting this Thursday. And at that time, I was able to go by, and it's you're really seeing this thing come together. It's starting to look like a school on the inside as well.
Dr. Cash like to go on that tour too. Ms. Cox, Mr. Hurst, and I just toured it about 2 weeks ago when we were there for one of the meetings.
Yeah, I'm sorry, what day did you say?
We didn't set up one
I'd
yet.
love to go see it.
I'd love to see it.
Okay. if 3 of you go, we'll have to invite the press, but, we'll get a date, we'll get it to the press.
Yeah. It's exciting. It really is to see that school come together. It's a beautiful product, and I think our county's going to be proud of the investment they made in that new school. It's just really exciting to see that come together.
Well, for months, I've looked at it from the back side of it, and I've seen cranes and all the equipment there, and now that has been moved, and it looks like a school.
It does. I do know that we picked up some of the parking spaces that we had originally lost in some of the value engineering. So I do know that we, kind of by accident, ended up picking up some of those parking spaces. I think it was about 50-some spots, wasn't it, Chris? So yeah, that was kind of a good accident. So it turned out good for us. And and I know they're going to be they may have already started putting tile down in the classrooms. So I think that was supposed to start this week or maybe late last week. So it's,
They had already started delivering it when we were there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would Thursday at 10:30 work for you all? I know Jess will be there at that time, because we meet at 9. Does it work for you, Ms. Golden?
No, but I can go a different day.
Okay.
Thursday I can't.
I could do Thursday at 10:30.
Thursday at 10:30?
That's fine.
Okay.
you be sure to call and get something set up because you need to see it.
No, we don't.
You need to see it. So. Anything else? Any other agenda items the board would like to see?
Public comment.
That does bring us to recognition of citizens. Any more public comments we got, Dr. Sears?
No, no more comments. We have 18 viewers currently. We hit a high of 23.
Oh,
Okay,
that's great.
okay. Well, good.
I have a public comment. I wanted to share something really nice with you all. 24 of the churches across 8 different denominations in Pulaski County committed last week to start praying for every single employee of our school system. All 697 of them, and what they've done is they've assigned a person to a congregation member, and that person has chosen, that person will be praying for that particular employee for the school system. And I wanted to thank the school board for getting that list together. Thank you all for doing that, and thank Ms. Porter. I think you were the one who managed to pull that together so quickly. And thank all of our local faith denominations for choosing to do that for our employees.
Appreciate you sharing it, Dr. Capps.
It's a nice thing.
It really is. It's a nice way to end our meeting. So hopefully things will get back to normal real soon. But until then, we will go ahead and adjourn for this evening. Thank you all for coming.